My name is Daniel, and I didn't grow up in a quiet house. I grew up in slammed doors, sharp words, and a silence that felt heavier than shouting. The kind of silence that teaches a boy how to read footsteps before he understands emotions. The kind that makes him shrink just enough to stay out of the way. My father had a temper that entered the room before he did, and without realizing it, I learned it. Not through lessons, but through survival. I told myself I would never become him. I said it like a promise, like a line I would never cross. But somewhere along the way, survival turned into imitation. And one day I heard it. Not his voice, but his anger coming out of me. Same tone, same weight, same damage. I was standing in my kitchen, hands clenched, jaw tight, staring at someone I loved. And in that moment it hit me. I wasn't just shaped by what I came from, I was becoming it. And that realization felt final, like a sentence I couldn't escape. Because I believed something that wasn't true. I believed I was responsible for what I inherited, that the anger was mine to carry, that the damage had my name on it, that I was just the next version of the same story. So I lived like that, fighting it, losing to it, apologizing for it, and then repeating it, over and over again, trapped in a cycle I thought belonged to me. Until one night I sat alone, exhausted not from the anger, but from trying to outrun something I thought was already inside me. I opened a Bible I hadn't touched in years. Not searching for peace, just searching for an answer. Something that could explain why I felt owned by a past I didn't choose. And that's when I read it. Ezekiel 18:20. The son shall not bear the guilt of the father. I read it again, slower this time. The son shall not bear the guilt of the father. And something in me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. Because for the first time I understood something that no one had ever told me. I was not responsible for their sin, not the anger, not the patterns, not the damage, but I was responsible for what I chose to do next. That truth didn't erase my past. It didn't remove the consequences of my actions. I still had to face what I had done, still had to apologize without excuses, still had to rebuild trust piece by piece, knowing some things might never fully heal. There were nights I sat with regret heavy on my chest, replaying moments I wished I could undo. And there were days I felt the old reactions rise up again, fast and familiar, like they had a claim on me, but now I knew the difference. I wasn't fighting who I was choosing who I would become. And that choice, that responsibility, that freedom changed everything. This is God's grace, stories of redemption, and this is the night I stopped carrying what was never mine.
If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that grace is still writing chapters you haven't seen yet, don't keep that hope to yourself. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this tonight. Share this message with them. Take a moment to like this video so more hearts searching for redemption can find it. And subscribe to God's Grace, stories of redemption, so you never miss the next story God is unfolding. Because Scripture reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. That means no story is finished, no failure is final, no night is permanent. And the next testimony, the next breakthrough, the next story of redemption may be closer than you think. Stay tuned, stay expectant. And remember, grace is still at work. We'll see you in the next story.
My name is Marcus, and I'm a man who used to believe that everything wrong in me had a history that started long before I was born. I didn't just grow up in a house. I grew up inside a pattern, the kind that doesn't announce itself but repeats itself. Quiet at first, then undeniable. My father wasn't a monster, but he was a man shaped by anger, distance, and silence. And somehow, that same silence found its way into me. I learned how to shut down before I ever learned how to open up. I learned how to control a room with tension instead of words. I learned how to walk away instead of stay and fix what I broke. And for a long time, I told myself that was just who I was, that it ran in the blood, that it was passed down like something permanent, something unchangeable. I remember the night it became real to me, not as a thought, but as a weight I couldn't ignore. I had just walked out of an argument, left someone standing there in confusion and hurt. And I saw myself from the outside for the first time, not as a victim of what I came from, but as a man repeating it. And that realization didn't feel like conviction. It felt like a sentence, because if it was passed down, then what chance did I have to stop it? I carried that question with me for years, through broken conversations, through apologies that sounded the same every time, through moments where I promised I would change and then didn't. I wasn't just dealing with what I had done, I was carrying what had been done before me, or at least I thought I was, until one night, sitting alone in a dim room, I opened a Bible more out of frustration than faith. and I read something that stopped me cold, Exodus 25-6, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation, but showing steadfast love to thousands. I had heard the first part before, but I had never really seen the second part. I had built my identity on the judgment and ignored the mercy. And in that moment, something shifted. Not instantly, not completely, but enough to make me question what I believed about myself. Maybe what was passed down wasn't just pain. Maybe mercy was passed down too. Maybe I wasn't trapped in what came before me, but invited into something greater than it. That realization didn't excuse what I had done. I still had to face it, still had to sit in uncomfortable conversations, still had to admit where I had been wrong without defending myself, still had to rebuild trust, knowing some people might never give it back. And there were moments I failed again. Moments where the old patterns felt easier, familiar, almost justified. But now there was something else present, something stronger than what I inherited. I wasn't just aware of the pattern, I was aware of the choice. And slowly, through resistance, through honesty, through a kind of humility I had never practiced before, something began to change. Not perfectly, not quickly, but genuinely. I started staying in conversations instead of leaving them. I started listening instead of shutting down. I started choosing differently, even when it felt unnatural. And that's when I understood what is passed down may shape you, but it does not own you. Because where judgment may visit, mercy remains. This is God's grace, stories of redemption, and this is the life I chose to rebuild instead of repeat.
If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that grace is still writing chapters you haven't seen yet, don't keep that hope to yourself. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this tonight. Share this message with them. Take a moment to like this video so more hearts searching for redemption can find it. And subscribe to God's Grace, stories of redemption, so you never miss the next story God is unfolding. Because Scripture reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. That means no story is finished, no failure is final, no night is permanent. And the next testimony, the next breakthrough, the next story of redemption may be closer than you think. Stay tuned, stay expectant. And remember, grace is still at work. We'll see you in the next story.
My name is Alina, and I'm a woman who grew up believing that brokenness had a last name, and it was mine. I didn't just inherit a home. I inherited tension, silence, and wounds that were never spoken out loud. The kind that showed up in slammed cabinets, tearful nights behind closed doors, and mornings where everything looked normal but never felt right. I watched the women before me carry pain like it was part of their identity, strong on the outside, unraveling underneath. And somewhere along the way I learned how to do the same. I learned how to smile through disappointment, how to stay when I should have walked away, how to accept less than I deserved because it felt familiar. And I told myself it was loyalty. I told myself it was love. But deep down it was fear. Fear of breaking a pattern I didn't fully understand. I remember the moment it confronted me. Not gently, but clearly. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone after another conversation that left me feeling small, replaying every word, questioning my worth, and I realized something I didn't want to admit. I was repeating what I had watched, choosing what had once hurt me, and calling it normal. And that realization felt heavy, like I was trapped inside a story that had already been written for me. I thought this is just what women in my family do. We endure, we survive, we carry, but we don't change it. And for a long time I lived like that, excusing what I tolerated, ignoring what it was costing me. Until one night, exhausted from pretending I was okay, I opened a Bible not out of habit but out of desperation, searching for something that could tell me I wasn't stuck like this forever. And that's when I read it. Joshua 20:15, choose this day whom you will serve, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I read it again, slower, letting the words settle. As for me and my house, and something in me shifted, because I realized for the first time that I had a say, that what was behind me didn't have to define what came after me, that I wasn't just a product of what I inherited. I was a decision in motion, and that decision carried weight. It meant I had to stop excusing what hurt me. It meant I had to walk away from what felt familiar, even when it felt lonely. It meant I had to face the truth about the choices I had made and the ways I had allowed myself to be treated. And that wasn't easy. There were moments I wanted to go back, moments where the old patterns felt safer than the unknown, moments where I questioned if I was strong enough to live differently. But every time I felt that pull, I remembered the words, as for me and my house, and slowly, through difficult choices, through honest reflection, through learning to see myself the way God did instead of the way I had been taught. Something began to change, not all at once, but enough to know it was real. I started choosing peace over chaos, truth over comfort, and boundaries over fear. And in doing that, I understood something I had never fully believed before. A new legacy doesn't begin when everything feels right. It begins the moment you decide it will. This is God's grace. Stories of redemption. And this is the day I chose to build what was never built for me.
If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that grace is still writing chapters you haven't seen yet, don't keep that hope to yourself. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this tonight. Share this message with them. Take a moment to like this video so more hearts searching for redemption can find it. And subscribe to God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, so you never miss the next story God is unfolding. Because Scripture reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. That means no story is finished, no failure is final, no night is permanent. And the next testimony, the next breakthrough, the next story of redemption may be closer than you think. Stay tuned, stay expectant. And remember, grace is still at work. We'll see you in the next story.
The moment I was finally free, John 8:36, the house was quiet just before sunrise. Pale gray light slipped through the blinds and stretched across the walls, while the room carried the kind of silence that only comes after years of running from the truth. It took a long time to reach this moment. I used to believe freedom meant doing whatever I wanted. No rules, no one telling me who I should be. That's what I told people anyway. But the truth is, I wasn't free. I was running from regret, running from guilt, running from the quiet voice inside my conscience that kept reminding me something in my life had gone terribly wrong. From the outside, my life didn't look broken. I could smile when people looked at me. I could laugh when conversations required it. I knew how to hide the mess well enough that most people never noticed. But the inside of my life felt different. It felt like a locked room with no windows. I carried secrets, choices I wasn't proud of, words I couldn't take back, relationships that slowly collapsed because I kept choosing myself over everyone else. At first, those choices felt powerful. I convinced myself independence meant I didn't need anyone. Not family, not accountability, and definitely not God. But sin has a way of tightening around your life like invisible chains. The first compromise feels small. The first lie feels harmless. The first time you ignore your conscience, you convince yourself it's no big deal. But those moments stack up until one day you realize something terrifying. You're not in control anymore. I remember the night everything finally caught up with me. The house was dark and quiet, but my thoughts would not stop racing. Memories flooded in faster than I could push them away. Faces of people I disappointed. Words I spoke that I wished I could take back. Regret has a way of finding you in the middle of the night when there is nothing left to distract you. I sat there staring into the darkness, wondering how my life drifted so far from the person I once hoped to become. That was the moment something inside me finally broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly enough that I knew I could not keep living the way I had been living. I opened the Bible that had been sitting untouched for months. Not because I was faithful, because I had run out of answers. My eyes landed on a sentence that felt like it had been waiting for me. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. John chapter 8, verse 36. I read the words again slowly. Free indeed. And I realized something I had avoided admitting for years. I had spent so long trying to free myself. I tried to outrun guilt. I tried to bury regret. But the truth became clear in that quiet moment. I could not unlock my own chains. Freedom was something only Christ could give. That night I finally told the truth in prayer. No rehearsed words. No pretending. Just a broken confession whispered into the silence. The change did not happen overnight. Redemption never does. The days that followed forced me to face the consequences of my choices. Some people forgave me. Some people walked away. And I had to accept that. Because redemption does not erase the past, but it changes the direction of the future. Slowly, something inside my heart began to shift. The shame that once controlled my thoughts began losing its grip. The heaviness I carried for years slowly loosened. I was not perfect. Some days the old voice still whispered that nothing had really changed. But every time it tried to pull me back into the darkness, I remembered the words that met me that night. If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. Real freedom is knowing your past no longer owns you. Grace is stronger than your worst mistake. Christ is powerful enough to unlock chains you thought you would carry forever. This is God's grace, stories of redemption. And this was the moment I was finally free.
If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that grace is still writing chapters you haven't seen yet, don't keep that hope to yourself. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this tonight. Share this message with them. Take a moment to like this video so more hearts searching for redemption can find it. And subscribe to God's Grace, stories of redemption, so you never miss the next story God is unfolding. Because Scripture reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. That means no story is finished, no failure is final, no night is permanent. And the next testimony, the next breakthrough, the next story of redemption may be closer than you think. Stay tuned, stay expectant. And remember, grace is still at work. We'll see you in the next story.